works.
It's
You
going
want to turn
out.
down the camera? Like, mhm. It's so weird when it's in like, yeah. Oh,
Woo! Should we dance?
let's go.
Yes. Hey
Oh,
guys, Suzy and Tiffany here talking on our podcast on real things going on in the real estate world and everything else around us. So, we have an exciting guest
Our
today.
very first guest.
Yes.
hi.
And we're going to talk about how we came about choosing this guest and why she's important in part of the community and real estate world. So let me first let her introduce herself. So, Miss Ellie, would you like to
Yes.
please introduce yourself and your business and talk a little bit
Sure.
about yourself?
First of all, thank you for having me. If you don't know Suzy, you should. I just met this lovely lady right here. She's awesome too. So my name's Ellie Lieberman, and I have been a professional psychic and psychic medium for 15 years full time. I am originally from Los Angeles, and I moved to Charleston about 3 years ago. I lived in Maryland for 5 years, right before COVID hit. I think I got protected from the craziness in LA. And I moved here and I have been doing more house clearings than I ever have in my entire career.
I bet.
But really, I'm just a spiritual guide more than anything. I help people find themselves. I have a few licensed therapists that refer me for grief counseling and things like that. But if you have a hard time making decisions or have experienced something that has really jarred you as a person, I usually, don't quote me, 95% of the time confirm that you're not crazy, that it's okay. And then a lot of people have experiences that they don't necessarily want to talk about to their friends and family because they think they're going to look crazy. I would say almost every time that has to do with visitation or spirit or loved one coming
Yeah, I can
through.
see that.
Yeah, people are like, I don't know, should I say something? Are they
Right.
gonna commit me?
Right.
And then the way I met you, Susie, was
Yes.
pretty
So,
wild.
part of the purpose of this is, and it's like right in my face.
There we go.
Is Charleston is a very historical place.
Yes.
We have a lot of history here. A lot has happened. We have a lot of old homes as well.
Yes.
Well,
And
it's like I think one of the most historic towns in the entire country.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, it's spooky. I don't know anybody who you mention Charleston to, and they're like, "Oh, it's a little spooky. It's so
Yeah.
old." Like that's the
Right.
initial conversation.
Mhm.
One, it's beautiful, but then also, have you heard the history before? Have you ever had a
Right.
thing? Like people ask me that since
Mhm.
I've moved here, and I'm
yeah,
like, let me tell you, just go downtown. Like you can turn one corner and you can feel it. If you're
Yeah.
a regular person, even if you don't believe in that stuff, it's electric.
yeah.
You can feel the static down certain roads and streets
Sure.
and things. So yeah.
So we thought, being part of a real estate agent, real estate photography, we have had experiences ourselves. On top of just kind of addressing, what do you do if you buy a historical home and you're having issues or things of that nature. So a little background as to how we met,
Poor
and
Susie.
she's she has a wonderful business, and I truly wholeheartedly believe in it because I've experienced it 100%. But I was one of those people that felt a little odd and reluctant to speak on we were experiencing a person in the house, footsteps, and situations. Let's
Yes.
just say. And we didn't quite understand how or why. Now, we're not in a historic home.
No.
Our house is 20 years old. We live in a golf course community in Somerville. Never had an issue the first few years of living there. Nothing ever happened. So it was completely foreign to me and thinking, well, how could there be a ghost or something in this house that nobody died in, or it's not historic, or
Yes.
And here it ended up being an item that a family member brought into the house,
Yes.
because apparently that can happen, which I'm learning.
Yes.
My husband and children really like to collect and dabble into antiques and estate
Yeah.
sales and old military stuff. As you know, we've rebuilt the old World War II Jeep and
Yeah.
truck, and so and we have a lot of respect for for those things and the military and
Sure.
the history behind it, but did not realize that there are moments
So you've been
that
living in this house, everything's good,
everything's fine.
hunky-dory, and then all of
Yes.
a sudden there are little just inconsistencies, noises.
Yes, yeah, and we have a very big open floor plan. When you're sitting
Yes.
in the living room, you can
Mhm.
literally see everything
Right.
up above and
You can
around you.
hear, like, when
Yes.
you can hear it, and like there's echoes and stuff. Like, the first thing I want to acknowledge is like your courage to say something. Because what happens is, and you can confirm for me, is both parties are having experiences, your partner and you
Yeah.
don't tell each other. So you're having these like moments, and then both of you either have to have
You
them
just
at the
think,
same
oh, it was
time.
the dog or
Yeah.
the cat
And
or
you don't
whatever.
want your partner to think something's wrong with you. So you're
Yes.
like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. But then something happens where you're both mentioning something at the same time, and then it starts like, is that what happened?
Yes.
Like,
So, well, it was two situations that really hit home to make me finally put a post out there, which
yes.
is how we got connected, which I'll explain. One was at night when I couldn't sleep. I went out into the couch. I was laying on the couch. I literally heard a person come behind me, walk around me, and go up the stairs and stop in the medium.
Banister. Yeah.
And I was like, "Do I need to call the police?" I like went under the blanket,
You
called
got scared.
called Bo.
She was
I
legit
thought
scared.
I thought somebody was in the house.
Yes.
Yeah.
He came
That
out,
would be terrifying.
went
I
through.
would be scared.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it was super scary, and I've heard it before, but it literally felt like and heard a person like walk
You could
right
feel
around
it.
and up,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and so and Bo got up and he came out and checked everything, and we
There's
couldn't
nobody in
find
the house.
Good job,
anything.
Bo.
10 points, buddy.
Yes. So, and then it wasn't but a couple days later, he was off work. I was home working from home, but I was outside. I was working on the flower beds and like weeding and this and that. He was in the house. I had not been in the house for a good 2 hours. And he's like, he came outside. He goes, "What, did you just come out here? What were you doing
Oh,
upstairs?"
yeah.
I'm like, "I
I
have
wasn't
not been in
upstairs.
the house." He goes, "No, it was so loud and you're stomping around up there."
No.
And
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's you have these disconnected experiences, but they're the same experience.
Yes.
And then you have that's the conversation that
and it
happens.
was just and then
Yeah.
when we bring it up with like my son, he was like, "Well, actually, yes, I've heard breathing, I've heard walking, I've heard," and it was like, okay, at this point, and
Something's going on.
yes, and his behavior seemed a little off too, and
Yes.
so I was like, well, for the sake of my family and everything else, I'm just gonna,
See.
go on Facebook today and say, hey, this sounds crazy, but has anyone had these experiences?
Mhm.
And it was a client of mine that tagged Ellie here that has had experiences and has worked with her on things.
I remember that Facebook post, and you actually got a lot of comments
Yes.
and feedback of people that you would never imagine.
Right.
No.
That have
That's the
had
thing.
similar experiences, but you bringing it out, I think,
Right.
in the open,
I'm just
kind
really
of
glad
gave
you did.
everyone permission to sort of.
And
chat
it
about
did.
it.
There was a
Well
lot
said.
of people that you then helped after that
Afterwards.
post
Mhm.
because maybe they didn't reach out to me directly, but they
Yeah.
reached out to her after the
I had
post,
Diane and Nikki. Their
yeah.
house was also had things going
which
on.
was a newer house in a new neighborhood
That's
that
the
you would
thing.
never guess.
It's the items. She has antiques and stuff there too, as well. Here's the thing. you can tell when a person is genuinely having something going on. The amount of detail that you included in your post, there was a lot of indicators there. I was like, something is actually going
Right.
on. You also have a reputation that precedes you. So I knew this wasn't a person who's just a little wacky, a little out there
Right.
looking for attention,
Right.
because there is that. And let's just be honest, there's also a lot of people who will swindle you. They'll take advantage of people. So there's two issues here, right? I don't want to look crazy, and I also don't want to, be judged in my community, right? So there's that. And then also, like, who do I actually go to that's not going to take me
Right.
for
It's
for granted?
legitimate.
It's actually
Yes.
legit, and it's going to actually help me. If a person does their job, you should not need them again for a very long time, unless you're bringing other things in, which we had that conversation.
Right. Right.
So, uh, our mutual friend and client goes, Ellie, you're on. And I'm like, let me take a look. I knew right away. I knew right away. And I was there like within 24 hours. You like booked an emergency service. She was really scared. You were really scared. And I remember being like, well, do you know what item it is? And you're like, you don't understand.
You don't understand
Right.
We
how
have
much
hundreds of
history things are in
in
our
my
house.
mind, I'm thinking it's just like 3 or 4 items. Maybe it's
No.
something they
It's like
inherited.
a museum.
You
when
have
you
a
walk in
literal,
there.
you could run a museum. You
Yes.
could, like a historical museum of so many things. Like, this is a passion within their family. And I pull up, I'm like, oh, this isn't even an old house. Like, in my mind, I have no idea what
Right.
I'm walking into.
Right.
And I'm like, all right, I'm on my way. And I come, I have like all my things like Mary Poppins, like.
Yes, she does.
And I'm like, let me pull out all the things that are staring at me. And they're like, what do you need? Like, what I do? I'm like, it's fine. Everything is fine. Take a deep breath. And really, it was more about education. Like, kind of
Yes.
walk me through the basics. And I was like, well, don't tell me too much, but let me explain to you what this actually is. Everything is energy. Energy cannot be destroyed or created. It just becomes something else. And then I could see the light bulbs starting to click for you guys, where you're like, oh, well, that makes sense. Because I think that we don't know how. It's the how. How is this even happening? That's very confusing.
Yes.
And then there's unknown, right? So you're like, how is this even happening? That's really
Right.
where you're at.
I have a
right?
newer house. I never experienced anything.
I didn't
All
buy
of
a historic
sudden,
home.
right.
This isn't.
Yeah.
There isn't
Correct.
an Indian graveyard in my neighborhood.
Right.
Like, how did this happen? And then weird things.
Yes.
Weird. So we had. I'm glad it happened this way, because we had presents actually come physically, like with the three of us together. I mean,
And
how do you
look,
even?
I did not believe in
She
this.
was like, yeah, right.
Is that kind of typical?
No.
If you go into a home that they sort of the energy presents itself to you?
I mean, not where other people can notice it, where I'm
Just your own
hypersensitive.
intuition,
I
but
know.
not like, here I am. Right. Okay.
It's probably my top 5, honestly.
Really?
Yeah, where we all were witnessing the same thing.
Yeah.
Usually there's one person that was like, what?
Right.
What just happened?
What just
Yeah.
I didn't feel anything. I didn't see anything.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But we all had a collective experience.
Yeah.
That's when I know we've really got something going on. I'm also a magnet. So I was like, I welcomed it. I said, show yourself. That was part of my process. I'm like, show yourself. And then you're like, throwing energy. Imagine your whatever was in the house.
Mhm.
How did it present? I mean, what was weird was when the
The
lights
lights
got
went
dim.
down. Like, it's
It
the
was
middle
so
of the day. Even
dark.
the sun, like,
Everything
darkened.
dimmed.
It was so.
I started to do my
Wow.
thing, and when I channel, I'm drawing. I have a
And
art
it's
background.
very it's friendly. It's not.
I'm not like bring the
No,
spirits.
no,
There's
no,
no hokiness
no,
going.
no.
I'm the least.
We don't have a
woo-woo
Ouija
person.
board out. We're
No,
not.
I literally was like, this is what blessing oil is. This is what sage is. This is what Palo Santo is. Do you smell the difference? It's all education. Let me explain to you what energy is. Let's see if we can debunk this first. Let me give you some peace of mind, because that's my goal, is for you to feel better and to find out what is really going on here.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, it was like the clouds covered the sun and all the
Wow.
lights went down. I wish it was recorded.
I
I
know,
really
I
do.
do too.
And literally, I felt it. Like the banister, that middle, you had your
That's where it would always
stairs.
walk.
That
Yeah,
banister was there, and you could feel it. It came down, and it
it
was
did.
this cold
And
draft.
it
Oh, I'm
like
getting
I
chills.
swear it like hit
It
through my shoulder.
touched Susie, so it came in between and then wrapped around your husband, and you were scared. That's when you got scared. You're like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. I'm like, it's fine. And I literally stood up and did jumping jacks in the space. And I was like, nothing is going to hurt you. I'm here. And it was like, that's when things started to lighten. And I just started to channel. I started to draw. And that's when the letter thing happened and a bunch of other psychic stuff started to happen, started to pick up on what this could be. And then you were like, do you want to go
Walk
into
the
the
house
room?
into all the things.
And I just, you know, I lit some candles and I burned some Palo Santo, which I prefer over sage. Palo Santo is a wood that has a really nice, like, sweet, almost like sandalwood scent. And I think it's more light than sage. And so I lit some of that and I walked up the stairs and I go immediately into the room with all of the things in it.
She did not believe me.
I was like, oh, I mean, there's hundreds of items. This
So
is
could
not.
I
you
would
feel
probably
the
say
energy
thousands.
change when you walked into this room? Was there
Oh,
more
yes.
going on there than just this
Yes.
one item?
Yes. And I went straight into the closet. That was what was cool. Is like, I think that it's hard to discern whether or not it's from the house, it's from the history of the land, is it from an item, or is a person bringing this on?
Right.
Is it attached to the person? Is it attached to the item? I think you had multiple things going on at once, and that's why it was scary. It's something realizing that your son is young and can, easily be, misguided because he's into this kind of stuff, right? You've got a ton of, war memorabilia going on all throughout the house, including in the garage, right?
Mhm.
And then you've got multiple eras going on.
Right. We
And
got World
then
War One, World War Two,
everything.
Vietnam, like
It
everything. Yeah.
wasn't just, and so there was like this mishmash of different eras, and I think that that had a lot to do with it. It was like World War II and World War One should not be mixed together. I think it wasn't a haunting. You didn't have a haunting. You had a spirit that was like, something isn't right here. I don't want to be next to the stuff that's from Vietnam. I come from this era and this place and this thing. And as soon as we started to figure that out, I think I actually pulled out his son's ROTC, right?
Mhm.
Was it his?
Yeah.
Was it his, like,
It was the cadets.
his cadet stuff? And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, this has to do with him. He's the one who was bringing this stuff in, and nothing was organized. And I was like, well, the first rule of business is we're gonna make this organized. This cannot be a teenager's house and a teenager's room. We're gonna respect each thing. And you started to just feel it, like, just more and more. True.
Yes. Yeah. No.
Wow.
Absolutely.
It
And
was amazing.
everything that we did and the cleansing
Yeah.
procedure that you provided, I mean, because you did stuff and then of course you gave us stuff to do afterwards, like
Yes.
around the property and things, and all natural things that we're doing, and
Yeah.
the
Claimed
and
your space. You took
yeah,
your space back. I
yes.
think you lose your
So has
power.
anything happened since then?
Great question. Has it?
No. No, aside from a window randomly closing in the middle of the night when we had
Yeah.
no,
So-
nothing has happened. It like after that,
It was
we
amazing.
we are hyper aware, I think,
Yes.
now,
Sure.
because we had gone through it, and
Right.
now if we do hear something, we're like, what was
Yeah.
that? Is it?
Don't do that, guys. Like, it's fine. Like,
Yeah.
But
it's a good question.
it did. It totally took. I mean, I'm telling you, it was like a person in heavy boots was walking
It's
up
true.
and down,
Yeah.
and you would be looking up, and there's nobody there.
Mhm.
There's
Nobody else
there.
is home,
Yeah.
and it was
Scary.
it was crazy.
So since moving to Charleston, I mean, are these things that you encounter more than you did living in other places in the country?
150%.
Yeah.
I have lived in a very old area in Maryland and Northeast Maryland, where I was connected to Pennsylvania, Delaware, Virginia, New Jersey.
Okay.
Within an hour, I could get to any place. It's like literally in this little pinnacle. I did have, I think Delaware had some stuff, very, very, very old. But I was in a really, really, really old house that had a graveyard in their backyard. So, but here, that's normal. I'm from
Right.
California. That is not normal.
Right.
You don't do everything is so old. So I
Yes.
have done more house clearings, more blessings, more mediumship than I've ever done in my entire 15 years. And people are scared to say that they're going through that. I don't want that to happen. We should be This should be a more open conversation. It's not what you think it is. I'm not coming in and doing a seance and
No, it
channeling
wasn't at
spirit
all
and
like that. It was very friendly. She was very calming to me because
yes,
I
I could see it
experiencing it was I didn't
in real
believe it was
time.
happening.
Who
But
wants to?
it and she was very friendly in the correspondence with it all.
It
And
matters.
but no, I think it's important to know, even if you're not feeling comfortable in your space, like the things that you can do
Yeah.
within the home, because it might be something. It might be something that's attached to something. It might be the house.
Peace of mind is everything. I think we
But
think
it just
that we're not
feels better, you know.
okay. Here's a good example. Have you ever like wanted to go to a party and then the night before you have your outfit, you have your everything set out, you're so excited. The night before you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to go.
Yeah, all the time.
That it feels kind of like that.
Right.
And then you go and you're like, and crazy things go down. You're
Yeah.
like,
You're
man,
I
I
knew
wish I
it.
would kind of, it's like that. When you're feeling that ominous feeling of some kind and you can't pin it, you don't know if it's good, you don't know if it's bad, is it because you're scared, is it because of this? That's kind of what it's like. And then you're living in that over and over and over and over again. That's not good for your
Just like an unease. Yeah.
okay. Can you imagine like that as an energy ball, like what that could bring and how that can make your family feel and how you go out within your day and you're
Right.
always worrying. Like
Right.
that's what I think was going on.
Yeah.
And I think that happens more often than we realize. And it's still taboo. We still think
Right.
like, oh, like I'm gonna look mentally ill if I speak on this.
Right. They'll be like, oh, there she goes again.
But
Oh,
right.
God.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not like that.
Yeah.
Most people are like, please keep this confidential. And like, I'll pull my magnets off my car and make sure that when I'm pulling up, they don't know that the psychic is here. And because I respect that, I understand there is still a stigma about it. But hopefully, this will help kind of break the mold of
Yeah.
that. You just have to remember you're in more control than you realize.
Well, again, I bring you here to bring awareness because it's something I experienced personally,
helps.
and I did feel strange about putting the post out there first, and then I was amazed
Yeah.
at the amount of my
It was a
friends,
lot.
my clients, my coworkers
Yeah, I was surprised.
that had
yeah.
commented. And then I didn't even realize till she had advised, and she didn't share, who and everything, but she had a lot of people off of the post reach out to her directly, and met with her to
They were so
handle
glad.
situations. And everybody that was open and talking about it, or reached out to me saying, hey, your post, and I reached out to her, and this um indicated the same thing I did, that it was resolved,
Yeah.
and there's
So
peace.
let's talk about if there's not necessarily a ghost or a
That's a
haunting
great
or an
question.
energy, but let's just say a family lived there
Mhm.
that was not your family and they had completely different energy than you, and you move in and maybe the house just doesn't
being
feel
intuitive.
like your home.
I did
Or
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean it
Great
doesn't
question.
necessarily
and-
have to be spiritual energy. It could also just be negative energy,
I think
right?
you
That
had
happened.
that with some previous families that
I sure did.
had maybe drug addictions or
Yeah.
arguments,
It's
or
funny that you
bad
mentioned that.
divorces and
Yeah.
arguing,
So, like-
beating, things
Right,
like that.
just
It's-
bad
yeah.
energy.
It's a really, really, really good point.
Mhm.
I know that I have had my own quarrels and qualms in homes of my own, lived there, and then not wanted to be there anymore. So you move because it has memories, persons, places, things. Maybe you lose a parent or something like that, and you no longer want to be there. It's too much.
Right.
But you don't appropriately cleanse and bless the home when you leave.
Yeah,
So
I
what
wouldn't even think to
happens?
do that,
Right.
honestly.
So what happens? You leave that residual energy there, and whoever moves in has to deal with it. And actually, off of your post, went and cleared a
Yep.
house that had to do with, it wasn't a ghost, it was the family fire. There was so much turmoil that had lived in that house, and they had known a little bit about what was going on. And I literally walked this, and their dog, and like the six of them, we walked through the entire house, and where I decided to sit is where they had actual confirmation of where one of the worst knockdown, drag out fights had happened
Wow.
with the prior family. And I just sat there, and you could see them. They were like,
Yeah.
"What is going on? How?" And I was like, the dog just like sat down with me, and then that was it. I was like, "It's time to go. Take your space, salt your perimeters. Keep selenite's a really good crystal that brings a lot of light. Put them on your windowsills. Just really, to me, oh my goodness, it's not me. I'm so sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
Okay. No, I know that we probably walk in homes all the time, and you
Mhm.
just know
Mhm.
that there's maybe somebody passed away, or I don't know.
Right.
There's just like an off energy.
Or it was a
And yeah,
bad
and one thing,
divorce
bad
that
right, one
divorce.
thing
ended,
I
or
love about my job is I go in and it's sort of like solving a mystery. Like,
Yes.
why are they selling?
Right.
Is it a divorce? I mean, and normally
you open the
can,
closet.
right,
There's
you can,
military gear
You
there. Maybe
know,
they're getting
right,
relocated.
right.
You
can
put it
walk
together
around
by
and put
things.
it
True.
together,
Yes.
but there are times where you just walk in and the
It's heavy.
energy is just off.
It's like when you walk in a room and there's people there, and they've been talking about you.
Right.
You just know they were
Yeah.
talking about you, and you're like, "Listen, Becky, like we don't do that today." Like that's really how you should approach it. Like,
Yes.
listen, Becky, like this is my house.
Mhm.
This is my space. You are welcome to stay here, but you will not disrupt me. You will not disrupt my family, and you sure as heck are not going to give me problems.
So, how would you explain how that happens? Like a negative family energy
Mhm.
that, like the one that you went through that
Sure.
cleared. Like, why does that stick with the house and now a new family's moved in?
Well, I mean, I would say that don't quote me on this. I'm not a scientist. Like 90% of things are organic material of some kind. So it was once living of some kind. But then you have the earth, and the earth is a living thing. And you can call me a hippie, but that's just the reality of it. That's just the truth of it. And so when you have, where is it going to go? When you leave, and that energy is starting to kind of create a magnet of some kind, and it's going on over and over and over again. It's creating an impression of some kind. None of this, I can't prove this. This is technically pseudoscience. I mean, truly. But
I
it's
think
there.
right. And I mean, if you can go back, I've been reading Think and Grow Rich
Oh, yeah.
for like forever. But
Yes.
that's kind of the whole principle is when you attach your
Your mind.
thoughts to positive things,
Positive things
will
happen.
And I think it's
Same
kind
thing
of
with
a
the opposite.
similar thing. Yeah.
I mean, Dr. Emoto, he is a scientist who did research. He would literally talk negative to rice and talk positive to rice. And when he talked negative to the rice, it decayed faster.
Well, same with plants. I think there's been
Correct.
a lot of studies. with
Same
plants.
thing. You're
Yeah.
talking
Mhm.
about an organic material. So I think
Mhm.
that really it's really energy science more than anything. Your thoughts are also energy. Your brain is creating, little electrical impulses. Those thoughts are coming in. Those are creating little energy balls.
Right.
And if you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people, even just 2 people, and they're exchanging that, and then you're speaking it. Sound is also vibration and energy. You're talking about 6 months. That's all it takes of just over and over and over negativity. What do you think where is it gonna go?
Right.
Right.
Is it gonna follow you? I don't know. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it'll attach to a thing, which you think happened in your home with a certain item. It's really more about like how do you fix that more than anything, because that's happening. The way you fix it is to mark your territory. This is my home. This this is my
So do I
place.
pee on
This
it?
is my space. I mean,
Okay.
were we dealing with jellyfish?
I was just acting like a dog.
Essentially, your words are that. I mean, really, it's true. The key is to just not be scared to acknowledge that it's possible. That's the first step. Just
Well, and I
acknowledge that
think,
it's possible.
you know,
Open your mind to it.
Yeah.
and we talk about obviously being in a big historical area, a lot of old houses. I
Yes.
mean, we're based out of Somerville, but we do do real estate and photography and travels to meet clients all over the Charleston area. So we're talking, everything from downtown Charleston to the old houses on Main Street in
Yeah.
Somerville to
Well, we
West
were even
Ashland,
talking
everywhere.
St. George,
Yeah.
Right, yeah,
Ridgeville, all these little
exactly.
communities
And there's
that
a
have been
lot
here
of
For
there's
hundreds
right.
of
houses
years.
in the,
I mean,
the 1900s houses and
if you go to any cemetery here, you're going to see sites that are as old as 1600s. Okay.
Mhm.
So that is many, many, many years of people who have come and gone. Most of the time, not all of the time, things are to rest. Most of the time. What we're dealing with is unsolved things, unresolved things. And that includes things like divorces, arguments, grief,
Right.
things like that. It's the fresh stuff. So when we're dealing with the fresh stuff, it's new energy that just has not settled yet. There has been no solution. Ideally, we pass or we move on and then we're free, right? We're at peace in whatever capacity. That's the whole goal. But that's just not realistic. That's just not reality. A lot of people leave this plane unhappy, unrested, not at peace, not in acceptance of what has happened. Well, that can stop you from moving on. That's just a
Mhm.
reality. So where do you go? To where you know. You go where you know. Every
Mhm.
single time. It's my saying every single time. Where else? What can you do? You don't want to go to the other place, wherever that is, and you don't want to get lost. And so whoever's there is
Wow,
going to
that's a
be dealing with
really
it.
interesting thought. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, like, what's the difference between a ghost and just energy? I think a ghost or spirit, it still has this consciousness. I think energy is residual. Like if you're a photographer and you're taking a picture and you see the light trail from long exposure,
Right.
things like that. I mean, it's literally capturing light in
Orbs.
its state,
Sure.
orbs, capturing light in certain states. Essentially, that's what we are. We're all made of light. That's what it is. We're energy. So imagine.
Well, and I think a good point to bring to that is, especially during, like when I started real estate back in '06, '07, '08, '09, '10, we had a lot of foreclosures
Yes.
and a lot of hard
So sad.
times
Right.
with
Yes, well
families
said.
and obviously the home is being taken because they couldn't pay the bills and we know how hard of a toll that is
Sure.
on a family and I'm
Yes.
sure arguing and all of that and then
Mhm.
having to figure out where you're going to go from there once you're kicked out and things like that. So I'm
Yeah.
sure that a lot of these newer homes, like people bought those homes at 100% financing and
Yes.
lost jobs and then they're upside
Right.
down in those
Well said.
times, had no other choice but to hand the keys over to the bank.
How sad.
Things like that I would never even think of to be like even my house that was 20
Right.
years old that I had not had it. But
Right. It
to
has
me,
a
I'm thinking
story,
about
though.
energy and
Mhm.
how
Yes.
stressful and what a terrible situation that probably was for whomever lived there, whatever
Sure.
family.
Mhm.
And,
It's PTSD. I mean, it's a real thing. You have trauma. We store it in our bodies. You can
Right.
ask a chiropractor, a physical therapist, or a doctor. They'll tell
Massage
you.
therapist.
They'll tell
Yeah.
you
Mhm.
store that in your body. This is a real thing. And if you think about it, Susie, grief isn't just for people who pass. We grieve a lot of things in our life. We have to let go of a lot of things. I just let go of a car, okay? And I was like so stubborn. And it I swear it was like I was driving Christine, that like haunted car from that movie. The thing just had character and the car doesn't have character. I think that I had a lot of experiences in that vehicle. I just did not want to let it go. And it's the moment that I needed to, things just started to happen, man. It was my pride. I did the thing that I tell people not to do is I didn't listen to my gut. Kept pouring money into it. It's the same thing. When I pulled up to the the dealership, he was like, you know, I can't sell this, right? It's like, I know. He was like, it's got bad juju. I'm like, I know. Yeah, like
Wow.
it was a whole thing. So it's not just for houses. It can be persons, places, things, offices, neighborhoods, places where you have a lot of memories that you've had to let go. You know, who wants to go back to their childhood home where they've experienced a lot of, despair, right? And people are like, oh, well, that makes sense why that room doesn't, we don't want to sit in that room. I mean, these conversations are
Yeah.
happening. We're just not putting two and two together.
And so
Yeah.
your job is to go into the home and you help
Yes.
the homeowner clear out that energy so they can
Be
it
at
can be
peace
their space.
in their
right.
space.
We
Yeah, yeah.
forget how much control we have. It's the number one reminder. Like, you are here. You get to live. You get to live. You get to experience life. This is your space. And sometimes spirit energy, it just needs permission to leave. It just needs to feel some sort of empathy. I do have a girlfriend who acquired a haunted doll. Listen, she's a trip. Yeah. And so like there's
Dolls
people
are
who like
scary.
seek that out also, not understanding what they're bringing in. Now she's experienced enough. I know that she can handle those kinds of things. She welcomes those experiences. Sometimes people will leave things in the attic, like they forget when they move,
Yeah.
and you've got a 100-year-old doll in the attic, and you're wondering why you've got something up there, and the new homeowners will not go up there. They refuse. They're like, we had the home inspection. I'm fine. I'm not going up there. And I'm like, I'm not going up there. You're coming with me. I don't want to go up there. But it's my job to kind of break that seal. Don't think I don't get scared. Trust me.
How long do you have to spend in a home?
Depends on what's going on there and
Yeah.
how bad it is. I mean, I'm also a talker, so I spend time.
Well, we talk about relationships.
Yeah, you have to
and-
make people
right.
feel comfortable.
Mhm.
Depends on how
And
open someone is.
describe what you're doing and what's happening. I mean, I think that's a big
So-
thing that you're good at and important because for someone that
It's
maybe doesn't
translation.
even believe,
Yeah.
like I was like, this isn't.
Do you like to go in kind of unaware?
Yes.
So you can get
Don't
your
tell
own...
me anything.
Okay.
The most unbiased we can go, the better. But also, so let's say you're hiring me because you know there's some ghosty and something
Mhm.
spooky's going on. All right, you know for sure. And let's say that you do have the home's history. Okay, share that. You definitely want to acknowledge the home's history.
Right.
Okay, because that's something
That's
I could
more of just
Google
like a fact.
anyway.
Right.
Let me know what has happened here. Let's do that, and then I can reach out to my resources within the historical archives and libraries and things
So you
like
don't want
that.
to go in blind, but you don't want to go in with their perception.
Correct.
You want to form your own perception.
Let me get it out, and then what'll happen is, ideally, I would say happens so far every time, is I'm going to validate what you've experienced. So that gets confirmed, and then the dialogue happens. That's when I'm validating, I'm like, hey, are you having something happen here? What happened in this place? Is anybody having bad dreams? What happened with the wedding?
Mm.
And then they're like, well, it's funny. There was a wedding in the backyard like 6 months ago, and blah, blah. Things like that will
Right.
start to happen.
Right.
That's where my gifts come in. That's the dialogue that starts to happen. But be skeptical. Be skeptical. It is healthy to be cautious. It is healthy to let me come to you and hit and nail that. First of all, it gives me confidence that I'm doing the right thing,
Mhm.
but the relationship gets built. Once that happens, I don't know. It took like an hour to really clear the house. Maybe like actually spend the time, light the candles, do the things, give you instruction, maybe an hour.
Yeah.
But a full experience, about 4 hours with me, just about to.
Mhm.
You never want someone who you're not comfortable with clearing your home.
Mhm.
Like I could not be the right fit.
Is it
Also-
something you do every time you move into a space? So is that something that you think everyone should do?
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, that's who I am. Yeah.
So you don't necessarily go in and wait
Correct.
for
Well,
something
great
or,
question again.
Yeah, just take care of it right off the rip. Go
Mhm.
into a fresh space.
Better to be safe than
Yeah.
sorry. It's not going to hurt you to bless the home.
Mhm.
That's never going to hurt you. What's going to hurt you is being in denial of it once things start.
Right.
It's better to be safe than sorry, whether it's a new home, an old home, a new experience, an old experience. The other thing is, it's like if you've inherited properties, never know why that's happening. Inherited items, sometimes there'll be nothing that happens in the home and you inherit, your great aunt Gertrude's,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
cross stitch quilt from 1901. And all of a sudden the rocking chair is moving and that's where
Aw,
it's
Aunt
on.
Gertrude.
Yeah, poor my, and she, and 90% of the time they're just saying hello.
Yeah.
But our movies, our perception in
Right.
media, our Miss Cleo type of energy, we think it's something spookier than it actually is. Most of the time, it's about creating empathy, having an understanding. They just want to be acknowledged. I'm still here. I'm looking over you. I'm protecting you. I want you to know that there's more to life. That death is for the living. It is. It's for the living. It's for you to value what's going on here right now and to just do better, be
Mhm.
better. Don't repeat. A lot of times, spirit will come and they're like, I had A, B, and C experience. Make sure this doesn't happen to them. They've also inherited a home that had residual energy and maybe they didn't do anything about it. And they're there warning you. I don't want this to happen.
Right.
Be careful of upstairs. The only other crazy thing I've
Because
ever
that's
happened.
all they
That's what they
it-
remember.
That's the bad what
Well, they
happened
want to
in
be
the
of
spot.
They're trying to
service.
protect.
They're trying
Really?
to protect. Think about it. Can you imagine you passed, okay? God forbid, right? And you never handled what went through it. So the next person, you never said anything. You didn't speak a word. And I mean, this is newly acceptable to even have this conversation. Seriously. I mean, even before COVID, this was still really taboo. You did not talk about this, okay? Imagine you never said anything. You passed. You're watching this new family. And you
Yeah.
are like, no. You're like, no,
Yeah.
don't do it. You're gonna do everything you can to get the person's attention.
I see.
Everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
No.
that's a good example,
Yeah.
right? It's not. It's
Or
about,
like you're a mom and there's a little
Yeah.
girl and you know the little girl that like the
100%. Like,
I
you
get it,
just
yeah.
want to be like, don't do it, don't touch the thing, like blah blah blah. Like, I know that I'm an empathetic person. I'm sure I'll have empathy when I pass. I'm gonna want to do everything I can to protect whoever I love or whatever I've seen. There's always unresolved things. And so we come back and we visit in order to solve those things because the goal is peace. That's the whole point, is peace.
Yeah.
If you are feeling like unrested, I'm here, like say something, reach out, do something. That would be the best advice I can
And
give.
it's not scary.
It's
not
not.
crazy. She makes me feel very comfortable. They're natural
I
products
love-
that she brings into the house.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah, I'm not. First of all, I've never touched a Ouija board in my entire life, and I never will. I don't condone that. No offense to anybody who does. I'm not a demonologist. I don't remove entities. I'm not like that. I am a peacemaker. I'm an empathy bonder. I'm a psychic empath. I'm here to create a conversation of some kind, not a get out of here, cast you out, demon.
Right,
Like,
right.
that's for a priest, and or a pastor. I also just want to say I do believe in God. Like, I'm 100% working in tandem with something bigger than myself, and I think that's really important. These experiences make you more open. They
Mhm.
make you realize how much bigger things actually are. They can actually be a blessing in your life, and you don't even realize it. It's really your perception.
Right.
It's your perception. Yeah.
have you experienced any? Do you have any
Great.
photography?
I wanna
Well, I
know.
think I feel the energies.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't had anyone come and tap me on the shoulder, but there are a lot of times I'll go in a home and the hairs will just go up on the back of my
Yeah.
neck, or I just feel uneasy being in there. You just can feel it.
And then you open the closet and you're like, well, that makes sense. This is where the firearms are stored, or this is where, there's things that happen and you're like, oh, this makes sense.
Right.
It's everyone has intuition.
Well, this morning I actually shot a home that's an as-is situation. The realtor kind of warned me, and it was a divorce. And rolling up, you look at the house and like, that there's not been good things going on there. But I would have known anyways.
Could
Just
feel it.
walking in, that it wasn't on good
You know,
terms.
Speaking of that, so obviously you get that feeling pulling up.
Mhm.
Other people are more than likely going to get that feeling
Right.
pulling up, right?
do you say something? This is the question.
Well, I was going to say, if you cleanse this thing, would that make the feeling better
yes,
to sell the house?
absolutely.
I mean, I think about buying the house, but
Mhm.
until you said that, I didn't really think about doing it selling a house.
One of the coolest things I did was I actually blessed a new business. So they bought an old business that
Yeah.
had been there for like almost 30 years, and this was this person's life's work.
Mhm.
And it was a kitchen, and I mean, you were talking about grease just piled up. You know what I mean? And this
Yeah.
person, never wanted to let it go. And then they passed, and the family sold the building. And I went in, and you could feel it. It's not that it was bad.
Right.
It was just so many people, so much love, so many conversations,
Yeah.
so many arguments, so many up and downs, so many,
Right.
and then the pain of leaving. Go in, and she was like, I just want to make sure we don't take on the business of what this was. Like, this is now my space. Can you come? And I did almost essentially what it did in your house.
Mm-hmm.
And they have done an amazing job. And I go in every year now and bless the business so that you can bring that prosperity and
Right.
that goodness.
Your own.
It's a clean
energy to the
slate.
table. Yeah.
You need a clean slate.
Right.
And the truth is like, who wants anybody to know your business anyway? Wouldn't you want that door to be closed?
Mhm.
For as much as you're moving in, it's also good to cleanse the home out as well. It's a kindness.
It will sell fast.
I was just
It's
thinking that. I'm
happened.
like, because there
Think
are
of the homes,
legitimately,
yeah, where
like
It
you
people
happens.
said,
walk
you pull
in
up
and it's just
and you
not
feel
right.
it.
Yeah.
And,
It
and, and,
happens.
and there might be justification, like you said, the backstory. Like as the agent, I know more than you do as the photographer,
Sure.
obviously. But you feel a
Right.
lot of
Well,
things.
yeah, you
Yeah.
I don't know, like grief, for instance.
Yeah.
I can a
You
lot
can
of
tell.
times tell. Yeah. If someone
Sadness,
has passed away
loss.
or
Something
Yeah.
happened here. And, you do have to be somewhat open. It's my favorite when I see like husbands when they're not, and then all of a sudden they have a thing happen and their eyes are like wide open. And they're like, what? Like, it's the skeptics that
right,
have
because they're
that.
usually not as open.
Pay attention to those guys.
Right.
Those ones, the people who just do not believe, and they walk in and they're like, it feels really weird in here. You probably have something going on. Seriously. Like it's like this. I would love to get my hands on houses that have been on the market for a really long time.
Yeah. Like the whole burying Saint Joseph, like things like that that are.
Yes.
But
I would
How
love that.
That is
interesting, though,
actually
when
an
you have
interesting.
that house and it just makes
Yes.
no sense.
Why isn't it
Right.
selling?
It's not
Right,
selling.
it's priced
I
right.
see it
It's
love
in
to
a
get
good
my hands on
spot.
that.
I'm like, what in the heck?
I will
thought for
tra la
sure
la in that
would
house and
sell.
be like, we are love and we are light and you will
Wow,
sell and all
We
actually-
should
these
do a little experiment. So if you are a local agent,
You want to do it? I'm here. Let's do
and
it.
you just cannot figure out,
Yes.
then let's call Ellie and
I would love that. I would love to do that.
That actually really is a great point I've never thought about.
Yeah.
That because there are
I mean,
those
you
houses.
check
It's like
off
I've
all
staged
the
it. It's in
boxes,
the
right.
yes.
It smells good. The lawn is mowed.
You're like,
All the
why
in
isn't
the
it
world?
selling? And the neighbors are being nice and nobody's complaining in city council. Like there's no anything.
Yeah.
Like, the people were kind. Nothing bad happened here, and it's just not
Now,
selling.
if you walked
Yeah.
into a home and you didn't feel anything, would you just be like, "We're good"?
Here's your
just
refund.
do your.
I've never had to do that.
Yeah.
Most of the time you get to me, you have crossed off all the boxes, all the other
Right.
boxes.
Something's happened.
Something is going on, but
Right.
or a lot of times, if I'm being honest, sometimes it's our own inability to deal with our own problems, and we'll project that out into
Oh yeah.
outward into the house or because we don't want to see ourselves.
Mhm.
So sometimes it ends up just being me reading them and
Right.
saying what's really going on with you.
You need
You
therapy.
you need help, and you can go the clinical route. I'm here for you. Whatever you need, and then they just start bawling because
Yeah.
finally someone sees them for who they are and
Right.
what's going on. Because most people who are going through that, they're not showing that outwardly.
Right.
They're not. They can't. They're in survival mode at that point, trying to keep up with the Joneses per se, and nobody is actually really acknowledging it. I'm an outsider. I'm unbiased and I have no skin in the game.
Right.
So I am picking up on something that nobody else around them is picking up on. That in itself can be worth it.
So
Your whole life will change.
Do you have tips for people to do this on their own?
Yes.
Or do you just say no, leave it to the professionals?
Okay, if things are touching you, just call me. Okay? If you are smelling bad smells, sulfur, if you're having nightmares, call me. Okay? If you see a change in behavior in someone in the home that is normally kind, loving, and all of a sudden there is something wrong, call me. Okay? We'll figure it out. It's a person, place, thing, or entity, period. That's just the way it is. Okay? But it is healthy to literally salt your perimeter in Charleston. In this area
So
and extend it.
what you mean
So
by
you
that.
get
talking like
those.
table salt?
I
Like-
mean, depends on how big your house is, right? So I recommend getting, those 20-pound bags of salt.
Like-
You poke a hole in it, like
pool
rock salt. Rock salt, like
Okay.
traditional rock salt.
Okay.
Now I have Jewish roots, so kosher salt is my thing. That's just me, an homage to my family. And you literally poke a hole. You can put it on a wagon, and you drag your wagon around your perimeter of your house. It's also really good for keeping slugs away. So there's that as
Probably
well. Lots of things. And
unwanted.
listen, it'll rain, and that rain will go into the salt, and it'll go into the earth. Okay, it
So is
rains
it like
lot
a
here.
barrier?
Salt is known for protection.
Okay.
Okay. The other thing is iron. So like when you go to a graveyard, you see the iron fences.
Yeah.
It is said that iron holds in energy and protects that space.
Really?
That's what that's for.
Interesting.
Yes. Iron. So copper is a conduit. That's how you bring in things. Okay. Iron will literally protect the ground. So you can put little pieces of iron, little iron rods. Okay. And you can also use Palo Santo. I really just recommend like the Lord's Prayer. On the website, there's a new blog post called Home Blessings and Protection. Okay, you can check that out. There's a whole list. I don't gatekeep information, but if you're just not comfortable, just call me. Like, we'll figure it out. It's worth it. 90% of the time, it's me educating you. Sometimes it's just weird. And people just can't. It's just weird. You don't necessarily want to be the one that's doing it. You want some, because then I'm in and I'm out, and then you're free. You don't have to do any of that. Now, if you're experiencing slamming doors, if you're hearing audio, if you're experiencing cupboards open, things like that, that's 100% a poltergeist, and me and my friends will come in. He's like the dark to my light. We'll just say that. So I don't necessarily want to. I can do it, but it's good to have more than one person come in. It's usually historical. There's usually something going on there where someone has passed and they are pissed. But you can bless your home. For me, I blow cinnamon in my doorway. Cinnamon's for sweet and blessings on the first of the month. And I say, bring me prosperity, love, and protection. And I blow it in the doorway from the outway in. And I salt the perimeter of my home, and I make sure that my plants are clean and safe, and tidier home, the better, right? I do not live by that. I just want to say that.
It's true though. I mean,
it's
the more organized and clean your home is, the more
And the better you feel, honestly. You don't feel so chaotic and like when my office gets stuff all over it, it's like I feel like I'm just all over the place.
How
when
can
it's
you
clean and put
focus?
together.
Well, and you see that in a lot of places that do have a lot of activity. It's stuff that's been left for years, things that haven't been cleaned, things that haven't been taken care of, and because the energy is so stagnant, you get sad.
And you had talked about her son's room being unorganized.
For
So
real.
is that a pattern that you see when you go
Yes.
into a home?
Yes.
Is you see a lot of chaos and unorganization?
Yeah, who
and
wants to be in
clutter?
there? Who wants to
Right.
deal with it? You get overwhelmed, and that can, and this is just a shot in the dark. I wonder if spirit wants it that way. Stay away from my things. The other thing that just dawned on me is renovations. You could be in your home 20 years.
Oh, and maybe
and you
Like,
start
stir up
knocking down walls and
something.
bringing in additions, and they're like, you changed everything. This has been like this for so long. How dare you?
Oh, wow.
How dare you mess with my space?
Mhm.
Then you'll get activity too. 100%.
Interesting.
100%.
Wow. I didn't
She's
think
like,
about
guess I'm not
that.
gonna knock down that wall today. I'm gonna, yeah.
Well, gosh,
Yeah.
and right now Charleston's just under complete
Right?
I think that's why there's so
renovation.
much activity. I really, really do. I think
It's
that
because
it's
all of these
gentrification.
historic homes now are
getting redone.
revamped.
100%. There's an explosion. It's why I
Right.
moved here. I came for a visit, and I was like, I called my mom. Okay, I'm almost 40 years old. Who calls their mom? Okay, I was like, Mom, it's happening again. I was like, don't tell me I have to move. She was like, I'm not in it. God has his plan. I'm not telling you what to do. If you
Mhm.
feel like you need to move, move. And I just was like, I could not shake it. I felt it here. And I moved 6 months later. 6 months, that's it.
Wow.
Everything that I had, all the things of my thriving business in Maryland again, and moved on down.
And had you ever been here before?
No, I visited once. I didn't even know where
And
South
was it
Carolina
just vacation?
I came, yeah, I came to visit some friends.
And that was it.
That
Wow.
was it. Was it. And it was after COVID, it was like towards the end of COVID. So I had been dealing with a lot of people who didn't know if COVID was going to end. We didn't know if everyone was going to be okay. I also want to remind everyone that we experienced a lot of loss during COVID. And like you said, foreclosures and things back then. A lot of people gained and lost at that time as well. And we're only a couple years out.
Right. Yes.
The
yes.
truth is
That
it's
is
coming.
Yeah.
This is coming. This is now it's going to register what you lost, what you've done, where you've been at, who do you miss?
All the businesses.
That
have been lost.
We're in
Oh, yeah.
recovery mode. It would be good to bless anything that you're doing.
Right.
Like, it's not going to hurt you. That's my point. And if you're going to knock down a wall and you have a historic home, just call me.
Well, you better bless this office before you leave.
I promise. I brought all the things.
Yay.
This was really lovely. Do you guys have any questions for me other than this? I think
No, I think I've learned so much.
I hope so.
Yeah. this is
Well,
great.
everybody always likes to hear the crazy, funny, or wild story. So, do you have
Yes.
one in particular without disclosing any personal
Yeah,
information
I sure
that
do.
would be
Or
a good
you can
here?
divulge. No, I'm just
Sure.
kidding.
It's confidential. I was in a home, and I was actually just coming to read a lady's card. And it was a beautiful home. Oh, it was so beautiful. And it wasn't old, but the prior owner brought plants and vegetation and stuff for the landscaping from an old plantation.
Oh,
And
Oh.
it's
God,
so
it just-
interesting.
I
It just
know.
this is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It wasn't the home. They brought all the palmettos, all the things, azalea, a magnolia tree, everything from an old plantation in the
wow.
backyard.
I would never.
We're sitting outside, and we're just chatting. And I remember it was about to rain, so you could feel kind of like the moisture in the air.
Yeah.
And I was like, "What's in your backyard?" She was like, "What? What is in your backyard?" She's like, "It's the palmettos." And so she tells me all of this, and we go inside, and the shower upstairs turns on.
Oh.
And I'm like, "What just happened?" She goes, "That happens all the time. Like, it's normal." I'm like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "I'm getting my sage. Give me 1 second." I run to my car. I'm like, "No."
I like how she's telling you it's
I'm like,
normal.
"What do you mean it's normal?" I'm the
It didn't
Yeah.
bother her?
No, she was like living with ghosts. Like, it was nothing. Like, describe them and everything. She goes, "My kids would say that shower would go on all the time. We could hear footsteps up and down the hall and stuff." Yeah.
Plain ghost.
I know. Yeah, like
Wow.
Messing with water. And so I think this is in a neighborhood where there's an old Indian burial ground. And I think that natives, they love the water. That's like their water
Right.
source. That's their life source. And I think that
There's a connection.
there's a connection there, along with the
Wow.
plantation vegetation being brought in.
Mhm.
And she never had a problem after that. But That was wild. It was like when I was at your house and we felt the draft.
Is-
Like,
Well, that's
yeah.
a good point to bring up with the vegetation because right now the big thing is the old reclaimed barnwood and stuff.
Don't do
yeah,
it. Oh my God.
windows.
And
yeah.
I just recently sold a house. They had brought all this reclaimed wood in. I think it was from Orangeburg, from
Yep.
this thing, and
Mhm.
beautiful floors, and they epoxied them, and on top of, like
Right.
gorgeous. But
Yeah,
the
epoxy's not going to
windows
stop a
was-
spirit. You know what I'm saying?
Windows was a big thing too.
oh
at
yeah, the
Yes.
old
historic
windows,
homes.
even just
yeah.
you
So
know,
not only do you have to worry about lead, you have to worry
About
the
don't lick,
energy.
don't lick it, and
Right.
Don't lick it and make sure that you sage it.
Right.
I mean, really, think about it. You've got, they say, like, a house speaks. If these walls could speak, the house has
Right.
character. That's coming from some sort of narrative of like the house also witnessing all the things inside.
Mhm.
We're talking about organic material that's very,
Right.
very old, that comes from something that was once living from a time where there was a lot of history. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and err on the side of caution, and I'm gonna bless my home. It's not gonna hurt you to have someone like me come in, okay? It's going to cause you more harm if you wait. I think that that's the
Yeah.
biggest thing.
Well, and it's another thing for your toolbox, Susie.
yeah,
Yeah.
for the houses that don't
Honestly.
sell, right?
Meeting you really,
Honestly.
it really has opened up. I'm like, this is making sense that I met you
Yeah.
more than anything else.
No,
About like,
she's helped multiple families in their homes since we've met
I had
because
no
of the
idea.
connection.
I didn't know I was moving to Charleston. I just thought it was spooky, and I was a big fish in a small pond up north, and I was like, maybe this is a way for me to expand my business. And I was like, and it's it's beautiful here. I love it here. This is so my vibe. I really am a Southern belle at heart, truly.
Mhm.
And then I was like, oh, this is not why I moved here. I was like, oh, it started to click. Like,
For people listening, how can they reach out to you?
you can go to my website. It's beguidedbythelight.com.
And we'll put that, I'm sure, in
Right.
some
Yeah.
notes
Yeah.
or something
Yeah,
somewhere.
Please, yeah.
We're gonna edit
And
that in the
you can
video.
reach out to Suzy. You can reach out to me, and you can just like. There's a ton of services. I offer spiritual guidance. I offer mediumship. I'm on tour for mediumship right now, being in Chicago in June. And I'm really excited about that. Suzy came to my first event.
Yeah, she did one in Mount Pleasant.
It was a
Very
blast.
cool.
It was crazy.
Mel Robbins had a medium on her podcast.
Yes.
And I think that, what you do is becoming
It is.
more and more, I don't know if acceptable is the right word, or
It's well received, I think.
received.
Well, when you lose, we have to remember COVID. We lost so many people at one time. People started to have things. The entire world was on the same playing ground.
Mhm.
We could finally relate. It didn't matter if you were old or young.
Right.
You knew somebody who lost somebody. So
Yeah.
it opened up the conversation. And then when you think you have everything together and that gets taken from you,
Right.
it's the oldest story in the book.
Yeah.
That is when you find God. That is when you find something spiritual. That is when things become open. Because what happens is it ends up being a blessing. And no way in a million years would you have thought losing would be winning.
Right.
And that is also very deeply spiritual. It connects you to something bigger than you could ever imagine. That is an experience. You have to experience that. You can't teach that. To physically have something to relate to. So I think it connected everybody more than anything. So yes,
Yeah.
it's more. I think if I would have moved here 10 years ago, I would have maybe failed and would have not worked out for me.
Right.
I think that I moved here at that time. I was called, and you're going to hear it. There are a lot of people that are very drawn to this place that are very spiritual. Is this happening? I don't know why. I have no idea what that means. Maybe it's time for Charleston to get their spooky together and
The
take it
holy
more.
city.
Yeah, the holy
The
city
holy
needs to
city.
acknowledge how holy it actually is and how
Mhm.
sacred this is, and that the history really needs to be
Right.
respected and acknowledged, so that this can be an amazing place to live, and people aren't scared to buy homes, and they aren't scared to have these conversations.
No, this was great.
I loved it. I would
loved
do it
so
again.
much. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that she came into your life.
I
Yes.
know.
This
Oh, me
conversation.
too.
We
I'd
can
still be having
We can thank
whoever
Mr.
walking
World
around
War
us.
II man, whoever he was, right? It was great. Thank you for
Yeah.
having
Well,
me.
props to you for
You were
to
brave.
be brave
Yeah.
and publicly
Well,
kind of share
like
your
I said,
story.
it was the day of like, do I really put this out there? Because I watch everything. I'm careful about
You
what I
have to.
share. I run my own business. I've had my own business for over 17 years, and not everybody, like, I don't talk my politics opinions, things like
Yeah.
that, because I don't ever want to offend anybody. I
Yes.
don't,
It's a
Right.
touchy
It
subject.
is.
and so that was it, but it was one of those days where it was like, I am at a loss.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
somebody out here that I'm connected with somewhere will
gonna know
have
somebody.
something,
I'm
an
gonna get an
answer,
answer.
or they'll
And
be
listen,
like,
your comments were full of mixed bag reviews. It
Yes.
was like, hey, you should go here. Oh, this is bad. Be careful. All these things.
Right.
You're full of. I mean, it was truly full of a
Mhm.
wide range of
yes,
responses.
people that had experiences, people that didn't, that just had thoughts,
Mhm.
people that, just said, no,
Thought
just
you
go
were
strictly
drinking
All
to the
of
too
them,
much.
right? Yes.
Yeah.
Lay off the sauce, Suzy.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but then also,
There she goes again.
but the majority, I was amazed, really acknowledged it. So
Mhm.
this is a conversation that we're having behind closed doors, but not with each other. I want everyone to start talking about it, not because I want you to believe, I want you to make it safe so that if you're actually having an experience, we can solve it. You should
Right.
not be living in your home with unrest, feeling uncomfortable, and being scared.
And you
Ever.
don't have to put a big Facebook post out like
No,
I did.
just-
She'll
You
take
can
the
call
message
her
off
and
of
it's
her
discreet.
card.
Yes, I'll
Yes.
take my magnets off.
Yeah.
Nobody
Well,
will
and
know.
I think just with anything else, especially now, is people need to have an open mind.
Yes.
And just don't be judgmental.
The law of attraction's
Yes.
real. Come on, we all are
Yes.
acknowledging energy, okay?
And honestly, what does it hurt to try? And if it feels better, you feel better, the house feels better.
Right.
What
Even
did
if
that
it's
hurt?
gonna hurt you.
placebo effect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Listen, I was on I'll leave you guys with this. I was on
Okay.
a plane to Los Angeles visiting my family. This was weekends ago. And I was sitting next to a guy who's an electrical engineer for the government. Fascinating individual. And it was like put me and him next to I talked the whole time. We talked the whole time.
Aw.
It was so amazing. He was so open-minded. And he said, debunk yourself. And I said, oh, I've done that. I said, the only thing I can say is it's possible that I'm reading your memories. That I'm reading your memories. So when I'm channeling, I'm reading the memories, the old energy. Now, I don't know how I tell you that things are going to happen and they do. I can't debunk that. But it's very possible that I'm reading memories, which would line up with history, would line up with the residual energy that is
Right.
here.
Right.
And he was like, this is amazing. Can I get your card? Like, this is so cool. It was so cool. And that is the best way. I still spook myself out. I don't know how I call it sometimes. And I just leave that to something bigger than me. And I just sit in gratitude with that. And that's for me. And no one can take that from me. But until you have an experience, I'm not here to prove that to you. But know that if you are open to that, you will have one. It's only fun until it's not.
Yeah.
You said that a few times today.
Yeah,
and I
like,
think
don't
that's
be
true
pushing.
with everything.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, this is so cool. And then some weird stuff happens to you, and you're like, no, thanks. No, thanks.
And then
You
you're
don't want to
putting
push
that
back.
doll back on eBay.
Listen, I'll let you know. It's spooky. I'll make sure that you can post that too.
What is with that?
Yeah.
If you want a haunted doll, apparently you can get one on eBay.
Yeah, and I started looking at the stories I was reading.
Suzy
on
went
these.
down a rabbit hole.
Like, what? This is
I should have been
happening?
like,
People
don't do
sell
it,
this?
Suzy. Yeah.
Oh my God, there was good ones, there's bad ones, there's dynamic ones, there's like beware, beware, beware. I'm like, why does anybody? First of all, why do you have it?
Because
You're selling
they
it.
don't
Second of all,
know.
why are you buying
They
it?
think it's funny. They think it's something funny. And that's what I'm saying. You never know. You never know. Anyway, so that's it.
This was
Well,
great. Thank you
for
so
having me.
much.
I appreciate
Thank
you
you.
guys.
Thanks to everybody
Absolutely.
for listening.
Yes.
I think that we got an A+.
Yes,
for
I
today.
loved
This
it.
was great.
Absolutely.
It was
And
really
so,
good.
yeah, any questions, anything like that, reach out to us. We're going to have all of our contact information, website, things of that nature afterwards. And so we
Yes.
appreciate everybody listening. And I think we have enough time. You might actually go check out
Yes, it's like 1924 or something. Let's go. I
So-
can't wait. Thank you.
Yes. All right. Thank y'all.
See